Hello, this is one of the presentations in Snapshot 1 of the GhostBSD Con Snapshot series. My name's Izzy Meyer. I use she, her pronouns, and I am presenting about a set of utilities called OpenBSD Utils that make desktop use of OpenBSD a little bit more easy. So first off, let me start here. So why would I create these? I don't dislike OpenBSD's tools. I actually really like them, but they're kind of unintuitive for someone who's new to OpenBSD and maybe used to the buttons and menus of a Windows or macOS environment. So some of the main usability concerns that kind of stemmed me to do this was there's no graphical wireless management. Granted, wireless management's quite easy using the ifconfig command and hostname.if files, but even still, the average newbie doesn't really want to open up a file to connect to a Wi-Fi network or type a command with do as. It's a little unintuitive. Also, since Firefox is pledged and unveiled, it has some extra caveats when you want to do video conferencing. Something that people often will do in their day-to-day life, whether it be therapy meetings, working, or meeting with their family or colleagues, that sort of thing. And that's often something that people have hiccups on. And usually what that entails is disabling pledge temporarily for Firefox and then reverting the changes once you're done so you can get the sandboxing back. However, that's a bit manual and kind of annoying, so I wrote a utility to handle that. There's a couple other things that I find slightly unintuitive that I've worked around, and I'll get to those later. So, the goals of these projects. So, I want to follow OpenBSD's design principles, or at least my weird interpretation of it, as close as possible. I don't want to hard code using any programs installed from ports, so that means on a basic install of OpenBSD with nothing else on it, all these utilities should work. They have to be at least compatible with whatever the stable release of OpenBSD is. Right now that is 7.6. Although there is some changes in the 7.7 beta branch that's coming out that will change one of the utilities, but I'm not updating that until that becomes stable. I want to keep things simple. I want the code to be maintainable, easy to read. I'm also writing these in Corn Shell. I guess I could use Perl too, although Corn Shell just works better with what I'm trying to do and I have more familiarity with it. I don't want to make assumptions on what people have on their system. That is something that really bothers me with pieces of software. And I want to keep the options of the utilities to a minimum. I don't want to make a bunch of endless bits and bobs for people to configure. If you want to change it, you either change the code or submit a pull request to me. What sort of utilities does this provide? Like I mentioned earlier, there's a graphical wireless management program called Wireless. There's also a Firefox video conferencing configuration program, which will configure Firefox temporarily with sane settings for video conferencing. I also have a few package management utilities, such as listing packages by size, which is really nice if you've got a load of packages and your user local partition is quite small and you are running out of space, which often happens, or finding packages installed that couldn't be found in the binary mirrors for whatever reason. No, this isn't like I'm trying to find what packages need updates for. It's more like if I've got a package installed that can't be redistributed as a binary in the mirrors, and something changed with the library that it depends on, I want to be able to find it and figure out what I can do with it. It's just an easy way to figure out what isn't in the mirrors and what isn't. What is. And there's a couple more things I'll get into later. So here's me getting into things later. So again, I got the wireless utility and FF video call, and I've already explained those. I've got a couple package ports and source control utilities. These might be a little more geared towards developers, but considering OpenBSD kind of appeals to more technical types, I figured they'd be nice to have too. So source will find a file inside of your user source directory and navigate to it. Well, it won't navigate, it'll just print it so you can like CE to it. I also have port, which works very similar to source. It'll return the file path of a port that you request. pclean, which when you're working on ports, I don't know if anyone's worked on making or maintaining ports in the ports tree, but sometimes when you change something or patch a port you're testing from the mailing list, there'll be like .org files, and that just gets rid of those. I have maintains, which is really nice if you want to figure out who maintains a port, so you can message them or email them with a bug you found. I have a package missing, which will identify packages that couldn't be updated and thus must not be in the mirrors. Package size, which I mentioned earlier, lists all the packages by size. I have port reinstall, which uses both package missing and the port utility to rebuild packages that aren't in the mirrors in case a library that they depend on changes. And also have revert diffs, so if you're patching part of the source tree and you want to revert what you changed because you made some catastrophic, horrible mistake, that will revert that. So I'll go through some demos here explaining how the different utilities work. Note, all of the utilities have man pages, so if you want to play with this on yourself, I'm only doing a brief overview. I won't show everything that they do. Feel free to play with them themselves on your own time. I kind of group them in sections, so I've got wireless util, package utils, and ports utils. Obviously they're separated by what they would usually be used for. And I also have utilities for management of the source tree and video conferencing. So before we jump into the demonstrations, the manual pages do need some work. This is a general documentation invitation, as well as any bugs or opinions on my software that you want to change. The Codeberg info is at the end of the presentation, so if you have any qualms or questions, feel free to send me a pull request. So now we go to the demonstration portion of the presentation. These utilities all have man pages as seen by this demonstration window here. You can always reference how they function using these man pages. Additionally, some of them have graphical functionality and some don't. The only one that has graphical functionality currently is wireless. This means you could quickly put this script in your Mate bar, for example, so you can click it and then manage your wireless interfaces. It also means that you can just run it as a keybind too. So I could just type the wireless command and it will launch the utility, or I could launch it from my toolbox in my window manager here. I execute a command, wireless, and there it is. So for all intents and purposes, it doesn't matter how you launch it, it launches the same anyways. So the wireless utility has a few options here: scan, connect, disconnect, check internet, and exit. The names are fairly logical. If you click scan, it'll find whatever the first wireless interface that ifconfig reports and attempt to run the ifconfig scan subcommand on it, and it'll return the list of SSIDs it found. Connect will prompt you using xterm for the SSID you want to connect to, and then its password, and then it will attempt to connect to it. It currently does not save the connection to hostname.if files, so you'll have to press this every time you want to connect to something unless you manually add it to your interface config file. Disconnect, check internet, and exit are fairly straightforward though. I'll only be able to demonstrate scan currently since I do not have a networking setup right now that will let these ones work. I trunk my interfaces. I do not accommodate for trunking trunked interfaces using these utilities. I do plan on setting that up eventually, as well as saving your network config after connection to your hostname.if file. So, like I was saying earlier, when you click scan, it'll list whatever the first interface it found that has a wireless network, for the first wireless interface. In this case, I use a wireless AC card from Intel, so it sees that I have IWM0. Click OK. It'll give you a list of SSIDs it found nearby, and you can use these in the connect prompt. That's all. Okay. On to the next utility. Package size is a program that shows the size of installed packages in descending order. Let's open up the man page. So it's got two options, human readable and P. H will make the options show in human readable like data format. So if it's 100 bytes or 1,000 bytes, it'll show up as a kilobyte. Or there's also the P option, which will pipe it to whatever the pager environment variable is. By default, OpenBSD does not set an environment variable for pager for users, so it'll default to less if that is not set. The benefit of not paging by default lets you pipe it into other utilities such as head or tail, which can list the top or bottom of a list. So if I do package size as is, it'll take a little bit to execute because I got quite a few packages. Give it a sec here. As you can see, it lists them in order. But that's a lot to scroll through. So maybe I just want to figure out how big LibreOffice is, which is what I used to make this presentation. But I don't want it in a binary format like this is showing. As you can see, it's got this ugly, unreadable binary format. I can do -H to make it human readable. And then if I want to specifically look for LibreOffice, I just have to grep for it. So I'm just going to fgrep. I don't need fgrep, I can just grep it. Grep for LibreOffice. And that'll go through the list of packages, list them by size, and then print only the LibreOffice line. Give it a sec again. Later down the line, I do plan on having it just show that size of one package instead of forcing you to use grep. I haven't gotten around to it yet. And as you can see, LibreOffice is 679 megabytes in size. Quite huge. It also lets you page. It's fairly self-explanatory. Right now, my pager is set to less just because of my shell environment, although do know on a default OpenBSD install, the pager environment variable will not be set, and it'll use less anyways. So package size _size -HP, P for pager. Come on. And since it's a pager and I'm using less, you can always search for certain things like what's a package I've got installed? WebKit. I've got two versions of WebKit, quite huge packages, 181 megabytes. The next utility is called package missing. It will find packages currently installed in your system and print their name if they can't be found in the mirrors. And the way it does this is by faking a package add-u, which is the update command, and it will look for the line couldn't find updates for and list the packages by that. So I type this, and it'll take a sec because again I got quite a bit of packages. This will be quicker on less bloated systems. In my case, I've got MSTT Core fonts for Microsoft fonts and a package that follows licensing that OpenBSD will not allow merged in that I made in my personal ports overlay called an Echo Sakura that shows a little cat on your screen. So what's cool about this is if you've got a port installed from the ports tree that can't be a binary package, that means when you update and a library that may depend on updates too, you might break the package that you installed from ports. So this will let you figure out what packages were installed that way, and then you can manually go in and fix them if need be, and vice versa. It also can be used for other utilities, with other utilities, such as the next ones I'm going to show, that handle port stuff, such as port or port reinstall. These can be generally composed together as much as you like. Let's start with the port utility. So if I go port, and remember I mentioned the echo thing? What port does is it returns the file path of a port in the ports tree. Note this is different from make search or make search key equals, since that command only shows things within the database for the official ports tree. It does not search extra overlays, such as my stuff or the OpenBSD-WIP repository you may have. It's a little hacky, but I found it's really nice for if you're finding a package that is in OpenBSD-WIP that may not be in the official tree. So let's just show something that isn't in the official tree, such as my Aneco port. So if I do port Aneco, it'll return the path of the port. And what's cool is you can use subshells or command substitution to quickly change to the directory. So I can do cd and then port Aneco, and it'll quickly go back to wherever that path was. As you can see, my current working directory is the path that it returned earlier. I also have pclean, which I can't demonstrate right now, but what it does is it removes the org files from your port. Maintains, this is a fairly simple program. It'll just return the maintainer of a package. So if I do Aneco, in this case I did not set a maintainer in this port, so it defaults to the port's mailing list. Or maybe I did that wrong. One sec. Okay, yeah. There is no maintainer for that. Or maybe I can check for a port that I do maintain, like ClassicU. And as you can see, it sees that I maintain that port, and then if you find an issue with a package, you can find who works on it, and you can email them or CC them. I also have port reinstall, which, as I mentioned earlier, package missing could be useful for this. So if I find where port reinstall is, and it's right there. Let's less it. So it's quite simple. It'll use package missing to list packages that it could not find in the mirrors. It'll change the directory using the port utility, or that it found with the port utility, and then it'll reinstall it. This is just a demonstration of how things can be composed together for easy maintainability and usability. I've got 2 more demonstrations to do here. I do not have the source tree installed, but I can explain how they work quickly. Source lets you find the location of a specific file in the source tree. Say someone emails you in the bugs list or the miscellaneous list saying, I found a fix for XYZ hardware, just patch this file. Well, this utility helps you find that file so you don't have to like navigate through a large tree. You can always grep, that makes it easy too, but I find source to be a kind of quick and dirty hack that works fairly nicely. I've also got revert diffs, where if you patch something in the source tree and it leaves behind org files and whatever, this will revert those changes for you. This revert diffs also will work in the ports tree if you want to revert a patch you made. So it's not reserved to the source tree. And I can't show you this one because it would disable my microphone input that you are hearing right now. But let's open up the man page. It's called FF Video Call. What it does is it configures Firefox and system settings for video conferencing. There's a couple subcommands it has. There's only 2 of them to be exact. Start and stop. Start will disable the pledge restrictions by writing disable to the pledge path, either ESR or Firefox, to those files down here. It'll also set the ownership of video 0 to your user defined by the user environment variable. Note that in 7.7 beta, the video 0 isn't the only video card that Firefox can access, so I will have to change this when 7.7 releases as a stable. And then it also enables video and audio recording. I also have a stop option, which will restore the original Firefox pledge files from the original file path or the ESR path, and it'll also change the sysctls back to their original settings of 0. And then if you're one of the people who uses Firefox ESR, you can also just add a -e flag to use those paths instead of default Firefox. This utility does default to regular Firefox, so just make sure you realize that before using it. So, I just want to thank you guys for listening to this presentation. I have a personal website on NeoCities. It is linked right here. I also said I'd be linking the utilities of the utilities repo. It's just my name on codeberg.org/utilities. Feel free to send a pull request if you have any issues or concerns with this piece of software. And yeah, I wish you guys a good whatever day it is that you're watching this.